Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our afternoon session of Operations and Monitoring Committee. So now we have our operation and financial updates from CCOs and the business unit. So could I ask someone please to move recommendation 4? And I will read it out, and the reason I'm reading it out is because of our online viewers. I forgot about that before. Thank you. So the recommendation 4 is that the operational and financial updates from council-controlled organisations and Destination Rotorua Business Unit. No, that's not right, is it? Business Unit be received. And moved by Councillor Gould, seconded Councillor Maxwell. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. All right, so now we'll go first to the Rotorua Regional Airport update. So can I welcome... Oh, hello. Sorry, I'm so busy looking at my report. I haven't met you before, so would you like to introduce yourself? And I've seen photos of you and information.
Oh, right.
It's not the same as a real person, is it?
No, sure, it sounds like those photos are becoming infamous. So hi everyone, my name's Nicole Brewer. I'm the new Chief Executive out at the airport, having started in early July, so about 4 months into the role now. So I'll kick off with the report for quarter 1. So the first thing I'll just talk to you about is our performance for the first 3 months of the year, and then after that I'll focus on what's ahead for the rest of the year. So far things are going well. We posted a deficit for the 3 months of $14,756 versus a budgeted deficit of $100,000. So we are on track at the moment, and it's looking good. This was driven by total revenue, which was up 5.3%, mainly driven by increased landing fees, and total expenses were down 5% on budget. Because our margins are quite tight, it doesn't take much movement in expenses and revenue to affect the bottom line, and that's what we're seeing here. So this may smooth out over the year, particularly as the asset transfer is completed, but at this stage we're in a comfortable position and on track to meet our budget for the year. Looking at our non-financial measures, so these are measures taken out of the Statement of Intent, we're on track to meet all measures except for aircraft movements. So the reason aircraft movements aren't tracking quite as well as were expected in the Statement of Intent is 2 things. One is general aviation is relatively soft around the country. This isn't a particular Rotorua thing, it's something that we're seeing everywhere in the country. And also we've had the change with Air New Zealand from the beach fleet up to the Q300, so we're getting slightly fewer numbers there. It's important to note, however, that landing fees with Air New Zealand are all generated on a per passenger basis, not an aircraft movement basis. So while that's the one we're not going to meet, it's not the critical one. It's the passenger numbers that are the important one, and they are up on last year and against the Statement of Intent. So just digging into the passenger numbers a little bit. Domestic passenger numbers for the first 3 months have been up by 9.4%. This means that total passenger numbers are up 4.4%, and that's the difference being obviously because the Sydney flights have exited and we no longer have those. But overall, we're still getting more passengers through the airport than we were before. The increase has been driven, as you will see, purely by Auckland Rotorua, and that's the increased capacity that have gone onto that sector. Christchurch Rotorua and Rotorua Wellington are relatively flat. So we'll be looking at focusing on those 2 routes and seeing what we can do to work with the airlines to get them growing. And you'll see there that the general aviation movements are just down slightly. So moving now into FY16, or the rest of the year, and what we're going to do, I thought it was just worth recapping very briefly on what we have agreed to deliver. So the vision for the airport focuses around being a central North Island hub and getting the best connectivity to the South Island. The mission is around maintaining a safe airport and exploring things such as non-aviation revenues and seeking efficiencies and ways to tweak better productivity out of the airport, with a strategy to maintain a safe environment and develop a commercial network that suits the community. So that's kind of what that's it in a nutshell, really. Obviously in the statement of intent there is more detail on that. So drilling down below that level, the airport have come up with 6 high-level goals that we are working towards, and these were presented also at the annual general meeting. So the 6 goals that we are focusing on to be able to deliver upon the statement of intent are to be financially sustainable, manage and maintain the assets to a high level. Obviously that's critical at the moment with the asset transfer about to take place. Be an asset the community can be proud of. Be a company that our staff are proud to work for. Be a company that helps council achieve its growth aspirations. So with that I'm talking about things such as Rotorua, the Queenstown link, and working towards council, with council to what we can do to contribute to that. And be a showcase the best of what Rotorua has to offer. So for example, if we're going to be making any changes out at the airport, we will look to see if we can, if it's physical changes, how can we bring wood first in, that type of thing. And obviously at the moment we're working with the eyesight and they're putting in new signage and imagery and stuff out at the airport to give a better sense of arrival. So that will be a gradual process, but it is definitely something that is at our forefront of our minds. So digging now into those key projects that I've sort of touched on is the South Island Air Links. So in conjunction with Destination Rotorua, we have come up with a Rotorua Queenstown development plan, which lays out the path of how we believe we can get to that as an ultimate goal. There are a number of steps. It includes understanding the market, both from the airline side and also from the demand side, for what do inbound operators, what do the market actually want, and strengthening existing services so that when a new service does come in, it doesn't damage what we already have in place. And obviously we're engaging with both Air New Zealand and Jetstar on this, and we'll continue talking with them as appropriate. Driving revenue is something that obviously will help us become financially sustainable, and this falls into 2 parts. So we're seeking to increase non-aeronautical revenue, and we're doing that through optimising the existing assets that we've got, and obviously in the statement of intent it talks about using the unused land, developing the unused land. That we're very much in the early stages of that. It's very much in an information gathering stage. We haven't made significant progress on that, but we are thinking about how we're going to go about that and who we need to engage with and all those types of things. And we're seeking opportunities to utilise the international terminal. So we have temporary office space going into part of the terminal soon, and we're engaging with a flight training school that is interested in coming into part of it. Again, early stages, but we are actively looking at opportunities to drive that revenue through the assets that we already have. And community engagement is a key focus, and this is something that Alistair Rhodes started quite well when he was at the airport, and that we're definitely keeping that going. So part of our intention with this is to reinforce that the airport is, and we want it to be, a strong part of the community. We want to raise awareness of the Rotorua Airport and the wider Bay of Plenty community. So it's not just about being a Rotorua Airport, we're also there to service the people of Whakatane and Taupo, or whoever would like to use the airport. We've got quite a number of businesses out at the airport. We've got a new hangar just going up, so it's about creating that sense of community out at the airport as well. And we do have more land available, etc., if there are more aviation businesses that want to get out there, and it's about fostering that. And all of this again is underlying is to support the strategic objectives of the council and the Rotorua community. So a couple of things that we've got coming up as part of this program. In early 2016 we're having Bike the Runway again, or the Runway Project as it's known. Obviously that's a Lax Council led event, but hosted at the airport, and we'll be we're actively helping with that. It's going to be on a Saturday afternoon this time, which is really exciting, so we've got a bit more bit more time to have everyone on the runway. And then we've got a public information session that we're planning in early March, where we'll be able to talk to the public and answer any questions and give them a sense as well as to what will be happening out at the airport. So, any questions?
Very much, Nicole. Right, Councillor Donaldson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, Nicole, just harking back to the direct service to the South Island, and we saw the presentation from Air New Zealand. They want us to double the passenger numbers before they'll consider such a service. So you've talked about there about a plan for sharing and gathering further information, and I was at a Chamber focus group meeting last week where a couple of inner city accommodation providers remarked that they had clients check out that morning intending to drive to Auckland to fly to Queenstown and nothing in between, just drive to Auckland, fly to Queenstown. Is there a way that we can capture that? Because clearly that's not going to show up in increasing our 44,000.
Yeah, look, we would love to be able, what we're trying to do is, so one of the Destination Rotorua staff and myself went to Auckland for 2 days, and we spent 2 days talking to inbound operators to try and understand what their travel patterns are, what the potential volumes are, what we can do to influence them to use the existing services. So I think in reality, it'll probably need to be a bit mixture of both, really understanding who the people are that aren't flying at the moment, and a mixture of getting people to fly on existing services. So when I've spoken to the Destination Rotorua, the partner forum, I've said to everyone, you know, we need your help to make this work. If people are hearing stories like that, or they've got extra avenues that we can dive into to get more information to try and flesh that out, then Oscar from Destination Rotorua and I would love to talk to them. So we actively encourage people to sort of send any leads our way, if you like, and we will go digging and see what else we can find.
Yeah, so if I can just add to that, if you talk to Colin from the Quest, it was he who made that comment, but he would give you a steer in that, and I guess there's a number of factors, and you may be able to comment on them, as what is making people make that decision that they drive to Auckland to fly south. Is it the price from Rotorua, or is it that the capacity's not there? So but we've got to capture that information somehow.
Sure. So far our research shows that it's price. So we'll be talking to Air New Zealand. We're just gathering some more information at the moment, and then that's something we plan to go to Air New Zealand and say, look, this is the feedback that we're getting. We're doing some fare monitoring ourselves out at the airport, so we'll be able to sit down with them. To be honest with you, price is probably the hardest one for them to change, because they have a very tried and true revenue management system, but it doesn't mean we're not going to try. So, I understand that prices are key, particularly for groups. I'm surprised to hear that feedback from FITs, but it's really interesting, so I'll talk to Colin. Thank you.
Yes, so we now have Councillor Bentley, then who worshipped the Mayor, and then Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, and Nicole. Dave actually asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but my one comment or request for action is the southern end of the airport. The land looks like to be quite blunt, a rubbish dump. Do you have any plans for improving the look and utilising that land to a more profitable level?
Are you talking about the land on Lee Road at the very end of the runway, or are you talking about the land between the runway and the main road?
Both, actually.
Okay. So at the moment there are no plans to do anything with the land at Lee Road. We just want to keep it tidy and keep it mowed, or we've got some horses around there that we send out to do the job for us. The land in between the runway and the road is the sort of land that has potentially been earmarked for land development. So we'll need to continue working through that, and then hopefully it will become something a lot better than what it is today. There's no immediate plans to make any immediate changes to that area.
Yes, Nicole, we had a rural and provincial mayors meeting last week in Wellington, and actually there's palpable anger from Whakatane, Bulla, West Coast, Taupō about the dropping off of their services. And I wondered if there's some value, local government New Zealand stepping in to start to develop a bit of a business case to take to the Prime Minister, really, as Minister of Tourism, about Air New Zealand's attitude. And I wondered if you've come up with this at all in your negotiation on this partner. We like the word partnership, but is it truly a partnership in the way that we're sharing information? Because these other, like Whakatane have now got another, Air Chatham's is coming in, and they're actually getting better service than they ever got from Air New Zealand, but it can't last. It's not sustainable, and they all know it. So they climbed in to fill a market gap, but there's not sustainable service delivery in the long run for, smaller cities in New Zealand. But have we had that joined up discussion as well as we're trying to put this business case together? Because I'm hearing mayors saying, I drive to Tauranga to fly to the South Island. I drive, and I go, God, they're moving all over the show. Passengers do. They just choose the easiest option that fits their timing. Timing is a big issue, and price. So we might need that aspect in that discussion.
In the Rotorua Queenstown discussion, or
Yeah,
just in the
yeah,
general?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't specifically pulled that in. I think where the likes of Whakatane and Taupō for us come in more importantly is about strengthening existing services. I am also very mindful of the fact that I don't want to sort of wave it in front of their noses that Air New Zealand has changed their schedule into there. So, but we want to raise the awareness that, Tauranga is a valid option, but so is Rotorua, and it's a really easy commute. We've got good parking, and so we would love people from Whakatane and Taupō to come to the Bike the Runways events and that type of thing, so that the Rotorua Airport feels part of their community as well.
Maxwell.
Thank you, Nicole. After I attended the AGM out at, and we had it in the international terminal out there, I came away thinking what you had mentioned about seeking opportunities to try and utilise that international terminal and more. Are you able to share some of the ideas or plans that thoughts, or where we might be able to help?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the two key ideas that we're pursuing there at the moment is in part of the area we've got temporary office space going in there, so that's a 12-month lease. That longer term, that part of the area, that part of the airport, it's the departures side, I want to keep sort of available, if you like, at this point in time for if we can get jet services back. So part of the development plan to a Rotorua Queenstown would be ultimately trying to get a jet back onto Christchurch Rotorua, and obviously if we have a jet we need to have the facility to screen passengers. So it works well for us having temporary office accommodation, it works for them and it works for us. And the other side of it, at the moment the main conversation is around a flight training school, and so that's sort of the option that we are pursuing there. There are a couple of other ideas about longer term what we could use some of that area for, but that's probably the most sort of advanced discussion, but it's still early stages yet.
Councillor Gould.
Yeah, thank you for your report today. With the extra security which is required around the world, does Rotorua Airport have to expend any extra money in increasing the security aspect of baggage checks? The big bags going through. I know you can do it with checking passengers going through the jet lounge. You've got a X-ray machine there, and that's not a problem checking people that side. But does the Rotorua Airport Authority have to spend more money on added security?
The simple answer to that is no, we don't. So we're in quite a fortunate position because we've been a security designated airport in the past and had the international services. We're very well set up in that regard. You may or may not be aware that the CAA are doing a domestic security review at the moment, and they expect that's in front of government as we speak, and we expect the outcomes of that to be presented in early January. I have been part of the consultation process for that, and there isn't anything in what they were proposing that I think is at all concerning. I think it's things that we're doing anyway. A lot of the other airports of our size may need to, for Tauranga for example, may need to spend some money on infrastructure, fencing for example, but Rotorua Airport is very well positioned to be able to pick up any changes. Exactly what comes out of that review, obviously I can't predict, but the discussions that we have had so far, I'm comfortable that we'll be able to manage it with very minimal, if any, extra cost.
Last question, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following on from Councillor Gould's comments on the security aspects, I just wonder, since we've got the security facilities there, and since there is a government review of these facilities, can we perhaps steal the march and implement increased security at Rotorua Airport as a means of advertising to the world that, hey, it's safer to travel through Rotorua, so come to us, not to Tauranga or Auckland?
Oh, we could potentially. I'm not sure how that would go down, but yeah, we do have slightly different security, techniques in place. But I also at the same time wouldn't want to insinuate that anybody else was unsafe. So I'll take your feedback on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for coming in today. We really appreciate your presentation. All right, now I'd like to invite Rotorua Contracting to come and present to us. So welcome, Leith and Tim.
Well, kia ora everybody. We've got a presentation for you. I'm Leith Comer, the Chair of Rotorua Contracting. Tim Hammond, our Chief Executive. So I'll ask Tim to take you through the presentation, and then we'd be happy to ask questions.
Hello everybody. So I just want to quickly go through the presentation, obviously, and leave time for questions at the end. Sorry, I'm just working out how to work this thing. The pointer there. That one? No. That one out, got it. So just a quick overview in terms of the, as an organisation, we became a CCO at the start of August. In the immediate period, our focus has been on two things: clearly defining our operational service expectations and looking at the capabilities of the business. And the key change initiative we've already initiated are, we've done a restructure of the business, which I spoke to Council about back in August. We've done a full bottom, or in the process of doing a full bottom-up budgeting process, and we're documenting our service level agreements to make sure it's clear between ourselves and Council what is expected for the exchange between the two organisations, because that is something that historically hasn't been documented, so it's been a process to get that set up as the initial part. And I've taken this for feeding into our draft SLA that we put through to Council back in September. So the focus has been on, there's 8 strategic focuses. The first of those is building the strong and healthy safety culture. Obviously with what we do, there is a risk around that, and it's something we're right fore of mind. We've been doing that through changing the culture of the place a bit to move to sort of a no-blame approach, get people talking about near misses so we can deal with stuff up front rather than having what quite frankly I feel is a poor record in terms of safety. By getting people focused on upfront preventing stuff happening, we'll reduce the number of incidents and the number of injuries, and we're already seeing that starting to flow through, and I hope that will continue. We're also empowering the staff more through that process and bringing a positive focus about rewarding health and safety initiatives and positive actions by staff, all part of changing that culture to get it front of mind for everybody. As I mentioned, we're the second focus has been on the core obligations. What is it we do for council? What are the details of that? That's been everything from what reserves do we actually mow, to what standard do we mow them, what assets do we look after. There was not clear documentation around that at all, and it's actually been capturing that and working with council officers to get clarity around all of that, and also then understanding what is the cost to actually service those assets. And that's the process we are still in at the moment, but we have made significant strides in that already. And that's the bottom-up pricing process. The other side, through the restructure, we had an organisation where there wasn't clear accountability for individuals in the organisation. It was a very confused organisation in terms of its leadership, and that was feedback from staff as well. We did values work with them, and they said the same thing. We're not sure who we report to or who we're accountable or what we're accountable for. So our restructure and reason we prioritise that is to bring that clarity to people, and it's starting already to yield a benefit, and we're getting people now seeing clearly who they're accountable to and what they're accountable for, and their activities and their attitude and their behaviours changing as a result. So that's the organisational structure that's flowing through. The next part is, I've gone to, trying to get clarity about what performance looks like. The targets, the monitoring, and setting that in place. That's part of the SLAs, the service level agreements with council. So what does our client, the council, actually want? What do they see as performance? And how does that translate into our organisation, not just to myself or my management team, but right down to the troops on the ground, so they're clear, everybody knows what the same message around performance. And a key part of that is around satisfaction ratings, and that conversation we're starting to have with people about how satisfied they are with our work on a monthly basis, and their expressions, both positive and negative, and our investigation in that is really starting to throw to light where some of the issues might be in the organisation and things we can action about. So that the satisfaction rating, while it might seem a soft rating, it's actually proving a great door opener to actually open up around what actually is going on in the organisation. Efficiency and productivity is something that really is our second half year focus. Once we know clearly what we're supposed to be doing and what's working, what isn't, then we can start working on how we improve the productivity and efficiency. And the robust financial planning and reporting. To be quite frank, we're very weak on that, have been historically. It is something we're climbing a big hill to get that in place. We have moved forward significantly, but we're not where we want to be yet. It's certainly something that the board is putting a lot of pressure on management around, and in terms of managing the business, it's a frustration for myself and my management team, but we've seen it has to be fixed, and we have been working on that, and we're seeing some changes certainly coming through as a result of that. Capability of the organisation, partly about the restructure there, but also we noticed a gap in the first quarter of operations. We had some external contracts we decided to pursue, and that revealed some lack of capability in our organisation. The first tender we tried to pursue, we were incapable of getting a fully compliant tender in on time. And when we looked at that, that was down to the capability of our people. We've since done 3 tenders we've gone for and had the capability to go there and be competitive on those tender processes, but it was clear the organisation did not have the ability when we started to competitively put a tender together, let alone even put it at a competitive price. That has improved significantly. The last part, the strategic planning, that's a process we're now going into of what do the next 3 to 5 years look like, what are our goals, what is it we need to be pursuing, taking that focus from very much the operational at the moment, lifting our eyes and looking forward, and saying for next year and the year after, what are the things we need to be pursuing, and what are the steps we need to take to pursue those goals. So looking at the statement of intent performance targets, in terms of client satisfaction ratings, as I say, that's a key part we're putting into our performance metrics. We've put measures in place, and I've got a graph in a moment that talks about those. They're for water, wastewater and stormwater. Other areas we're working on those in development. About the quality of what we do, our ISO accreditation is valid through to February 2018 currently, so we're well covered on that one. ACC accreditation for our workplace safety management plan. We were a large part of helping the council with their accreditation. We were advised a month into our own, into being formed as a CCO, we would have to go through the process again on our own. So we've now kicked that off. It was not the original intent, but we have just submitted our application. We are hopeful, and we have spoken to ACC, that we will be able to expedite that process and that we will be able to achieve the same high rating that the council did, because we were a large part of the council's process originally. And the other side there, we've had a poor safety record. So we've, at the board, the discussions have been about moving to a more of a zero harm environment, and part of that is making a significant improvement in our lost time injuries. So we set ourselves a target to bring it down by a third in the first year. So far we've had one, compared to the previous year for the same period where we had 4. So we are significantly moving forward on that. We are just about, as long as I don't curse it, if we get through this month, that'll be the first time we've had 3 months without an LTI for over 2 years. So it's definitely, the focus we're putting on it seems to be having an impact in terms of the things that are happening are turning into near misses that are getting reported that we can address before they become a real incident, and that's part of changing the culture of the organisation. The other part is staff engagement. We've done a values baselining with the organisation. That's where the information came back from staff about lack of clarity of accountability. So in the restructure, we've changed that by putting an improved leadership structure in place. And that has given people clarity of accountability around both performance but also staff. One of the things we did is we reduced teams down so nobody was managing a team of more than 9 people, most people 6 to 8. Previously I had one person managing 30 and somebody else managing 70. On direct management, it was ridiculous, just couldn't be done. And the growth side of things, our target is to pursue 500,000 of additional contract work above our base load for the council. We've currently got prices in for over $400,000 of work. There's a further 300 we're looking at. We have landed, I think it's 300,000 so far, so we're well on the way. We've also missed out on a couple of tenders we've gone for, which have been good learning experiences for us. As we learn what it means to be competitive in the market and make sure that we are competing and getting the people of Rotorua a fair deal on the price they pay for the services. So it's a work in progress there, but we have moved forward leaps and bounds from where we were at the end of August when we tried our first one. I said we couldn't even get a tender in. As I said, we've done satisfaction ratings and feedback, and these are the 3 we've done so far: water, wastewater and stormwater. To be honest, they are just in the acceptable level. So nothing stellar to report there. The good thing is we're not dropping down to the poor level. But what it has thrown to light is identified several issues, most of those around confusion about what performance looks like and reporting of that. And those issues, as we dig into them with the engineers and the parks officers, etc., we're dealing with, clarity, there's been lots of light bulbs gone around the table saying, oh, so that's what you actually want, we can focus on that. And also from the engineers going, oh, so that's what you do, we didn't realise that. So if that's what you do, there's a different performance conversation. So it's been very useful in fleshing that out. It's not where we want to be be firmly into the green, not just hovering around the brink as we are at the moment, but at least we are in the green as a starting point, which is something to be said. And finally, the financial position. So where we are for the month of July, obviously we were part of council. And then in August we became a separate entity. The good thing is versus the LTP numbers, and that's the only budget numbers we have at this stage, we are running a position where we're about 170,000 ahead, and we've got we have 170,000 surplus when we were supposed to be break even, so we're actually ahead at the moment. We would expect to be, though, because we've gone through the quiet period. This was the winter period, which is our lower time. We're now in our busy period. Spring, we've got a lot more grass growing. We've got crews out there dealing with more tourism, rate issues, clearing litter, etc. there. So our costs will go up. But we're on the right side of the ledger to start with. I'd be really concerned if we were not ahead of the game at this stage. Whether we are enough ahead of the game or more than we might expect, we don't know yet because we haven't, as I said, had that detailed financial information. We are developing it, getting a better phased plan, but at the moment, it's yes, we're ahead of the game, and that's the right place to be at this stage because there is going to be some downward pressure on that in the next 2 quarters. And that concludes the presentation.
Well, thank you, Tim, and also thank you for your attention. It's hardly glamorous stuff, but it is what's necessary to take an organisation that's been part of the council to a standalone organisation, and there's been a lot of detailed work, and the board would just like to thank Tim and the team for transitioning us to a point now where we can operate effectively as a CCO. So thank you, Tim. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Very good presentation. Right, Councillor Sturt.
Leith and Tim for coming today. Happy with all our information you've shared with us today. But what, Tim, in terms of, you're pretty new on the scene. How are the staff accepting the culture shock? How are you mitigating they've sort of been left alone to a certain degree with their own manager for a long, long time. A new broom comes in and the culture is changing. How receptive have they been, and are they, how receptive have they been?
Can I start and then I'll hand
Sure.
over to Tim? I think that, as you would expect, I think the environment and the climate is mixed. There are some who are hugely sceptical about what's happened, and they think this is the first bus stop to privatisation, and they fear for their jobs. I think there are some others who are very comfortable with the arrangement that they had in the past and finding the new regime that Tim is bringing a little challenging. And so the environment is mixed. I think where Tim has been able to talk to people, bring in some new systems and processes, I think there is a growing level of comfort, and we're starting to see an organisation that's going from highly sceptical and quite fragile to one that is emerging, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done.
And if I can add to that, it's a process that will take time, and definitely there was the doubters, the detractors amongst the organisation. But a lot of it in helping make that change has been the part of that restructuring. We empowered people to make decisions. One of the history of the organisation, decision making was very, very centralised. And there was very little empowerment of individuals in the organisation. Even experts weren't allowed to make decisions in their areas. I've changed that. I've empowered people, and they're getting confidence doing that. And as they find they can make a decision and they can have some successes or they can have some learning experiences from that, they are getting on board. And each area as it goes through that is making some quite big shifts. There's still a long way to go, but it certainly is shifted a lot in that time. Key to that has been empowering people to actually make the decisions about stuff they know best about.
Your Worship?
Just a comment, really, that some great feedback, and because we've had some big festivals lately, and visitors to town just go, wow, this place is just looks so beautiful. So nice if staff get that feedback. Then it takes you to the nursery, which I think is gold, but I see it's your sort of 7th objective about, where does it fit, where could it go. I'm not meaning competing, but there's some great economic opportunities for that nursery, especially linked with geothermal. Have you done any work on that, Tim, or has it been getting the ship in order first?
We're having a strategic session at our next board meeting on the 7th, and that's when I think the really interesting discussions are going to take place. Tim has got the organisation to a point now where we can start looking forward, and so we want to assess what our strategic advantages are, and one of them clearly is the nursery. And so we want to look at what that strategic advantage provides for us in terms of a plan going forward. So early days, but I think next time we talk to you, today was very much a rats and mice organisational change presentation. The next time we talk to you will be much more strategically focused, including what we might do with the nursery.
Councillor Gould.
Thank you for your report. With the new Work and Safety Act in 2015, do you think you'll be able to achieve all the results by the 1st of April or the 3rd of April when it takes place? Because some of those requirements are pretty tough, particularly for a contracting type business.
Yes, we're very much across the changes. We've been working with WorkSafe directly, had them in the workplace. We had a lot of that stuff already in place. The question was about its effectiveness, so that's where the focus has been. So one thing to have the mechanisms and all the requirements in place. The real question is, are they effective? Because that's what the intent of the Act is. So we're confident we have all the steps in place. Our focus now is on making sure they're effective, and part of that is the engagement with staff, and that's something that WorkSafe are very happy with what we're doing, and have been working with us to move that forward. So yes, I think we'll be on top of it. It's not just job done in April though. It has to be an ongoing cultural shift to getting people bringing that safety consciousness to the front of their mind, and that's something we will keep hammering all the way through. But yeah, I'm confident where we are, and we are very aware of that process and working through it.
Just to give you some additional comfort, we're very lucky to have on the board two directors, Ian Boyd and Jan Bolton. Ian Boyd comes from a background in forestry, which has had a lot of challenges in health and safety, and he's bringing that experience to the board and understands from a governance point of view the responsibilities of directors. And Jan Bolton, who you might know, runs a business out in Murupara, which every day she is focusing upon health and safety. So with Kim's push at a management level and those two people on the board, I think we're reasonably well placed.
Thank you. Councillor Rotorua and then Councillor McVicker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora kōrua. Thank you very much for your openness and your frankness in your report that's been presented today. That's very good. Very good indeed. Look, I just want to talk about, or just ask you about your capability to prepare tender documents. I mean, obviously that's where you're going to hopefully increase the income for the business. So do you actually have it within so that you can, I heard you say, Tim, that you're going to get better at it, but I think that's a specialist area. And I'm just wondering if you're actually going to look to bring other expertise in or try to grow that capacity within the business.
We need to have that capacity in the business. The staff we inherited did not have that capacity. As part of the restructure, there have been a couple of individuals I brought in with those skills. We're also looking at, it depends on the size and scale of those tenders. For the larger ones, I would go and bring in external parties as well to help us in that process, because it's not something we're doing every day, and that expertise needs to be that mix of internal capability and external. The external people we have brought in and now recruited, and myself in that process, we're putting a training program in place. We are partnering up with individuals inside to build that capability, because we need to have more people who are comfortable in that whole tendering environment to operate in there. Big ones, we'd pull in external parties, absolutely.
McVicker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pleasing to see the advances that you've effected, Leith and Tim. It confirms to me the fact that the CCO structure is the process and the best process to go throughout this significant change that you're implementing. One question, if I may, staff numbers, have they gone up or down?
They are, versus where we were when we brought in, we have the same, no, we have one more headcount than we had when we started. What we have done, there were, I think it was 17 temporary employees. But when I say temporary employees, some of them have been with us for 2 years. That has now been addressed, and a couple left us, and and the rest were all converted to permanent. And the capacity I've added, particularly around the tendering and things like that in the commercial area, that's where we've added the 2 headcount. So there has been headcount shifted around the organisation, but we're about the same. I think 1 or 2 different is the total number.
Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate that. Report is very illuminating. So kia ora. Yeah, and so now we move to Destination Rotorua. So Mark and his team, welcome. So you can bring up some more chairs if you would like to for hi Kitty. And Oscar, is Oscar coming to sit with you, or? Oh, I see. Right. I wasn't sure who the other. So it's Graham, is it? Okay. All right. Well. Okay.
Kia ora koutou. Firstly, thank you, Madam Chair, Janet and Her Worship for inviting us to be a part of today. It's a pleasure to be supporting our awesome leadership team in Destination Rotorua. For those who don't know me, my name's Kitty Atkinson. I'm Crean. I'm the Marketing General Manager, Sales and Marketing at Te Puia. I sit on the Tourism Committee and co-chair the Māori and Tourism Committee. I'm sort of taking the report as read, but I wondered if we might be able to point to a couple of key highlights. You'll note, and I'm pleased to say, that DR is on track with all of its headline KPIs for the first quarter of the 15-16 year. This includes the financial performance for the quarter, which is slightly ahead of the projected budget, as outlined in the finance section. In terms of the visitor industry, we've experienced some great growth and routinely exceeding the national tourism benchmarks throughout the first half of 2015. This is both in terms of volume of PAX and visitors, but most importantly of value. This can be largely attributed to exceptionally strong growth from Rotorua's international market, mainly out of Australia, China and the US. For the quarter, Rotorua has experienced even greater growth from each of these markets than New Zealand as a whole, and is almost certainly increasing our market share here. We'd like to point to the public-private focused levels of stakeholder satisfaction with DR services as continuing to increase, both in terms of the number of stakeholders who are engaged and the level of investment that they're contributing to the program implementation. This is headlined by the continued growth of our Rotorua Investment Partnership Program. At the time of writing the report, I believe it was about 93 partners for the next round. It's now at 96. And this compares, for the same period last year, we had 90. So that's a really good start. We're looking at around 900K of private funding, and that compares with 730 for the same time last year. There are a couple of businesses who are still, we haven't quite got across the line, but they're very much in our sights, and we are very active in ensuring that they come along for the ride. There's also some good discussion begun from these guys and the team with the hospitality sector, which is the next target in our sights to involve them as part of this partnership program to strengthen it further. In response to some feedback that we had from our quite regular forums that we hold with our stakeholders in industry, not so long ago, we've established a advisory panel to ensure that there is broader opportunity for input and feedback from from other operators across the board. So that's becoming a more formal kind of structure and process for us that is still a work in progress, but all of the people have been appointed and everybody's ready to go. This is going to help us in terms of helping us direct where that spend might go, what we prioritise around that, but also create additional communication mechanisms for from the board, from the team at DRM into the broader industry. I guess from our own perspective, oh, my apologies, I forgot to apologise on behalf of those who aren't here. Oh my goodness. So our chair, Peter Stubbs, that's so bad. Tim, my own boss, who's otherwise engaged this afternoon, Bruce Thomas and Brett Marbley, and of course Thomas is here. They have other engagements, I'm sorry, as much as they would have loved to have been here. So they've left it to me. So I just wanted to just flag what this kind of activity and these successes mean for businesses such as ours, just as an example for how that might translate to everyday action. So for Te Puia, we're currently tracking for the same period, so for the first quarter of our financial year, we are tracking 13% ahead of the same period in 2014 and almost 9% ahead of the target set for that period. So that has, this is across markets. We've enjoyed a very positive low season trading period. We're very positive going into this season. Most of the work has been around ensuring that we have the strength and the capacity to cope with the additional numbers. And we were all at a meeting last week around preparing for this growth, preparing and being able to be ready for the continued growth that we expect. So much so, so positive is our board feeling about the industry and the activity that's taking place. Thank you. I think he was trying to tell me to be quiet. That we will invest many millions in the next 2 to 3 years, and these will be announced more formally within the next 3 or 4 weeks. But we will be looking at significant investment in some new food and beverage facilities, including the development of a 300-seat restaurant overlooking Te Whakareurua Valley. There will be the development of a very honoured and proud development around our wānanga, so our schools of carving, of weaving, of stone, of waka, and will find themselves in a very, very special space and will add immensely to the visitor offer here, but also to the work that we do. There will be a new Kiwi house developed, very much in line with Māori belief and relationship with Kiwi and history, and that will also enable us to introduce new species into the Te Puia environment, native species like creepy wheaters. We will also have a new set of MICE, so meetings, incentives, conference, events style facilities, which will include a very special pavilion around the Pohutu Geyser where the marquee currently sits. So that's the energy, if you like, and the tone of how the industry's operating. I think at the moment we're no different to anyone else.
Thank you very much, Kitty. Just to add just a couple of quick points, particularly around the investment side. So Te Puia just outlining some of the things they're doing. Working with Grow Rotorua and the airport, we've had the pleasure of recent times to be aware of and be part of. There's about 7 real attraction proposals that are around Rotorua at the moment that, in my opinion, there's lots more than that actually, but in my opinion there's sort of 7 that are pretty real, and probably in the next 6 to 8 months we would start to potentially see some movement in those areas, and that's in addition to what the bigger operators are doing. And the other one is, there's 3 or 4 pretty serious accommodation proposals floating around, and they're at the right level, which is a really important point that I just wanted to reiterate in respect of the level of market that they're trying to service, and that's quite refreshing, and also is quite nice to be able to have a conversation in a positive light from a Rotorua perspective, whereas we've been talking to the same people a few years ago, it was a little bit more of a challenge. So that's that's really positive for Rotorua. In respect of presentation format, so Kitty's already said we'll take the report as read. We thought instead of me rabbiting on and walking you through all these elements, we'll just do a short 5-minute presentation in an audio-visual sense to give you a bit of an insight into what we've been doing over the last 3 months in particular and a couple of the priorities going forward. And then really happy to just take any questions, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Because we've all had a chance to read your report. Comprehensive and very well detailed as it is. Thank you. I think it's coming. We'll just wait again.
I did it, Mum. I'm just a kid. Come on, Mum. Just jump.
Jump, darling. You're amazing.
Hi there, Mike.
This is a time and a place where Maoridom has put on its best to welcome you in this manner, to start the process of working together, talking together, and doing business together.
Two things that make it really, really special. One, they are all here and we can give them the full perspective of tourism in one place.
From Hobbiton to Dart River to Shotover Jet, they get to see all of New Zealand in one 3-day event.
It's the way we can most efficiently and effectively meet international buyers.
Sometimes what happens is you'll have a buyer that actually covers a really broad range of the world and offshore markets.
We've got 600 people moving out this afternoon, going as far as Taupo and right up to Hobbiton in the Waikato and over to White Island to the active volcano. So they're from all over the world and all over New Zealand and here for a fabulous afternoon to see what we've got on offer.
Welcome to Rotorua, New Zealand, stop number 1 of the Crankworks World Tour. Oh, yeah.
This is the epitome right here. This is the highest benchmark of this competitive form.
Crankworks Rotorua slope style. Here we go. Tommy G. Yes! And now one jump left for you. Legit. Sweet shot. Third place for Tommy G. 18 years old, Nikolai Rogakin.
Wow, off axis 720, cash roll. Hold it together, Nikolai, you got this. Quick 720 to the left, jump landing, perfect!
Oh, it feels absolutely unreal. Sending it and pulling what you want to do. Seriously, couldn't be happier right now.
Here we go. Brad Reeder, he's dropping in. Opposite tail up on that cannon.
Thanks, Billy. Much appreciated. So hopefully that gave you... Oh, by the way, actually, I think we just cut out Deputy Dave in one of those Crankwork videos. We'll have to sort that out next time, eh? They, yeah, the 360 didn't quite make the cut. Look, from my perspective, I just wanted to hopefully that gives you an insight into what the team's been doing over the last quarter. Pretty proud of what the team's been putting together, but I just also wanted to reiterate that the public-private partnership that Kiri touched on, from my perspective, is the critical element that enables us to undertake these sorts of activities and perhaps contribute to scoring perhaps some better goals than we have done over the last number of years. And just the second to last slide that was up there, and I will provide that for you, I only got it yesterday, in respect of what was that trying to say. Basically, that was saying in 2013 we had around about a visitor industry worth $500 million to Rotorua. If we followed the last 10 years average growth rate for the last 10 years, we would end up with a visitor industry by 2030 that's around $540 million worth of value. Our target is obviously the $1 billion goal, which requires us to move at around about 4 to 4.5% per annum compound annual growth. And what that slide is showing you on the figures that just got released on Friday is that we're currently sitting around 600 million in the last 2 years. We sort of moved from $100 million and forecast to end this year somewhere around the area of 640 odd million. So that's considerably above the target line at this point in time. That's not to say it will be able to continue at that rate. There's bound to be some global shocks that will give us a little bit of some challenges, but I just wanted to reiterate that that's pretty much where the visitor industry target is all about, and the public-private partnership of commitment to try and get to that point. And the last point I just make in that area is the hotels just recently finished a bit of survey work around the impact of just the 7 big hotels in town, and why is getting to $1 billion important for Rotorua? Well, in a day for those hotels, they're consuming just over 1,000 litres of milk per day, 740 kilos of red meat, 300 dozen eggs, and around 290 kilos of tomatoes, actually, which is kind of a weird one, per day. So, that just gives you an example of the fact that that getting to that $1 billion goal will have a far bigger impact on the whole community than just on some visitor attractions and the accommodation sector. So, from my perspective, I just wanted to say thanks for that, and I guess we're keen for any questions.
Thank you, Mark and Kitty, for a very interesting presentation. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed that, and it's great to see that your industry in such good heart. So we're open for questions now. Councillor Sturt and then Councillor Maxwell.
More interested in your presentation, actually, Kitty, and welcome. Good to see you, and welcome too, Mark. You gave us a snapshot of where Te Puhi is heading, and I'm delighted to hear that. Is that, Kiri, and what you're feeling out there in your industry, is that indicative of the investment levels that other operators are certainly forecasting and looking to the future to reinvest? And maybe Mark is better to, what you've said, the levels you've said, if that's replicated across the industry, that's going to be great for Rotorua, the product. Is that what you're seeing?
I think we're probably just, I think that the inclination for investment is definitely there. I'm not sure about the levels. I think we're in a very different place to most of the other operators. We haven't spent anything really in the, so we're doing a little bit of catch up as well. So, absolutely, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't. And I think what we're hoping for all of us is that with this, you can feel it within the hotel sector. You can feel it within the pulse of the industry is just far healthier, stronger, more positive. And so hopefully, the next step would be to see that beginning to translate into that investment level.
And sorry, I think just to add to that, my point about the 7 real new attraction proposals I'm pretty confident that we'll see most of those come to fruition in some way, shape or form. Now, they're all smaller and they're all investments that wouldn't happen if the likes of Skyline, the likes of Te Puhi, the likes of Ngāi Tahu, the likes of Tamaki, we're continuing to reinvest in their product as a core anchor for why people will come to Rotorua. The other reason I just wanted to raise the attraction bit, it's really important that it's sort of like the lead before the accommodation, if you get what I mean, in respect of the reason for people to come here and more reason. And one of the last points we'll just make is that in the report, we've just completed a perception survey, which is sort of our 2-year pulse, if you like. And it was really pleasing to see that from that, the number one top association with Rotorua now with Aucklanders was the number of things to do. Now I can tell you that unfortunately 2 years or 3 years ago when we first done that, that wasn't actually, in fact the top 2 things weren't quite so positive. So I think that's indicative of some of that investment happening.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you for the presentation. Each time you do that, do a visual one each time to give us an update. And I see where those are going to be some of the ads that are going to come over the summer. The one I wanted to ask is world news at the moment, those horrific events that have happened in Paris, Europe, and the US, and that I just wanted to get some thoughts, Mark, Curie, and Oscar. What are your personal thoughts I'm not saying take advantage, but the benefits now, New Zealand being a long way away, being seen as a safe destination. What are your thoughts?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, from that, we have talked about this a bit, and I take on board the question that was raised earlier on, potentially around the airport. I think from our perspective, we certainly won't be jumping out there to put New Zealand up as this ultra-safe destination that might also raise everybody else's ira. The second element of that, though, is there's one of two things that will sort of impact on us, and potentially we see that there's a real impact on global travel. Now, one of the advantages for us is that at the moment that potentially is having a little more of an impact on markets that are not traditionally our growth markets just at the moment. And we are a lot closer to our big source markets, i.e. Australia, i.e. the likes of China, etc. So that may actually have a positive for Rotorua, or for New Zealand actually, and Rotorua, or New Zealand and Australia, as a relatively safe destination for those who still want to travel, but there's likely to be some impact actually on people wanting to travel. And what I would say is, as Kiri outlined, our growth now is starting to come back from the United States, for example. It's a very high value market, really important to us. Unfortunate events of recent times might impact on the likes of that. But the second element is that, New Zealand is probably quite well positioned for those longer haul markets too, in respect of perhaps choosing a Australia-New Zealand experience over some of those areas that have been experiencing some of that unrest. But we are very careful in how New Zealand and Tourism New Zealand, we have them here tomorrow, tomorrow, interested to see how they'll position New Zealand in that discussion, because it's obviously a very sensitive one and quite, it's just really sensitive, I suppose. No, I was looking for that first, don't worry.
Thanks, Mark and Kitty. The industry is just so hot, it's unbelievable. And I don't know that other councillors realise that I'm out nearly every night of the week meeting either industry players coming in or hospitality or investor interest. So we're going off, and you're to be congratulated. It's very exciting, and for us to be able to capitalise on that. One of the issues that I think had real resonance was the opening of the Tarawera Marathon at Te Puia, because those images, like Crankworks, the penetration globally is absolutely huge. And so we're starting to link these places with events, and I think that's a great thing going off. But my question to you is, does the investment in the heart of the city and the revitalisation work that we're so focused on, does that make a jot of difference to the industry? Thank you.
I'm on. Yes, absolutely it does. And even in this perception stuff that Mark and the team have done around Aucklanders, it's already the feedback's already coming through. So, that's direct from the horse's mouth.
If I could just add to that, one quick thing, the perception work, and some of that is about our expectations of visitors and how we actually deliver. You can actually see the shift happen when the East Street investment was made and completed, where we had a relatively low expectation, and it's grown over the last 2 years, but it hasn't. But we are outperforming in what we're delivering, and I think that there is no. It's not a coincidence. I thought maybe it possibly could be, but it's such a big shift that the only thing that really changed, to be fair, was the introduction of East Street as an example of some of that inner city investment. So I think it's quite real.
Interesting, thank you. Right, Councillor Rokawate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow on for something that our Mayor said about the tourism and hospitality going off. Having been, for the 5th year, this year, a judge in the Westpac Business Awards, I can tell you, I suspect virtually every business said that they want to expand their business, further develop their business, that the climate is right for investment. Certainly they weren't saying that 5 years ago, but I just wanted to say the one thing they did say is the contribution of Destination Rotorua to actually profiling and putting Rotorua out there. So just wanted to pass that on. Very positive, very positive. Thank you.
Councillor Kent. Oh, sorry, Councillor Donaldson, then Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kiri, probably to you or maybe Mark, but just the recent announcement of the new Qantas American Airlines link to North America that kicks in middle of next year, and I see Air New Zealand have just gone on sale with that destination right now, unsurprisingly. It'd be great to get some feedback from your board on how we might capitalise on any increase through Auckland on that market, and you know, not so much, I'm sure your board will be right on to targeting the Famously campaign in the right direction, but just where the gaps might be here in terms of what we have on offer as product or accommodation to maximise our opportunity around that new service. Thanks. That can come through economic growth PCG.
All right, Councillor Kent, McVicker, and then Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. It's most informative. My questions relate just to a couple of queries with respect to your financial figures on page 77 of the agenda. And I wonder if you could explain for me the fact that operating expenses are running 19.5% over budget and administration expenses are running 83% over budget.
Certainly through, Madam Chair, as outlined in the report, the operating expenses is just solely due to some timing of activity. So the seasonalisation of the year-to-date budget is based on basically following last year's pattern. We've had, and actually it's a little bit related to the point that was just raised by Deputy Mayor Dave in respect of the, we've actually had quite a lot of work in America as a result of actually not so much the new relationship that's coming on board, but the Air New Zealand relationship, and also alongside Te Puia in pushing into South America. So that's brought forward quite a lot of spend in the trade area that it's a little bit different to our last year's pattern. And for that purpose, actually, I'm just re-seasonalising the budgets next week. Later this week, to make sure that we're keep us in line from a reporting period perspective. So that's primarily the operating expenses area. For the administration expenses, it's actually a very similar thing. It actually is the way in which a number of our software licenses now have been billed up front within the organisation in the first couple of months. And for example, we have quite a large one for the eyesight to do with our point of sale system. So that wasn't actually billed right at the front of the year, or in I think month 2 this time around. So so that's basically where that administration expense variation comes along. I realise that we've done, effectively a fairly significant portion of the year, and I'm absolutely on track with being confident that we'll hit that number, if not just a wee bit better.
Madam Chair, first of all, Mark, good to finally receive your report and an update as to where you're heading, and it's all looking very positive. The market is buzzing, let's face it, and everyone's looking forward to a busy Christmas. My question relates to the investment program, partner program. Have you as yet come up with a solution or a hook to entice those operators, particularly attractions, into the partner program, in particular those who do not rely on the Auckland or domestic market?
Yes, certainly. Good point. Well, I mean, the first point is the other major player in Ngāi Tahu will be joining the program within the next couple of weeks as a result of, and thank you for agreeing to add Quentin to our board, who actually I think will add a whole lot more value than just the partner program element. He's, although I've just been talking to him this week, they've got some challenges over at Franz Joseph at the moment, so it's pretty terrible. So I think that will actually help, not just with that one player coming on board, but 2 or 3 others. The second component of that is the partner program now, at our last forum, what the industry has asked us to look at is about 60 to 70% of that funding is still focused on the domestic market and our domestic activity, One thing in that area is we're about to launch, or just launched actually, a new Kiwi campaign in Auckland, which is about that new, the growing migrant market. So basically, like the TV ads, for example, are all being subtitled in Chinese and run through the Chinese media, etc. That has a significant impact into our international market. So what we're saying is our perception in Auckland is a significant driver of international perception of the destination. And then the last point is that the other sort of 30% of the partner program activity, we are starting to look at some of the offshore activity. However, we will be guided by those partners who are paying to play, for want of a better term. The last point I would make, though, is we certainly see the partner program not just as a funding mechanism or not just as a partnership to get a collective approach. We're also moving towards trying to add as much value as we can to provide as much relevant information to assist the businesses with making good, solid business decisions. So some of the insights work we've just done is sort of where we're heading in that space. And so hopefully people will be seeing more value than just a marketing spend over here. So, yeah.
The other thing probably I'd like to say in that is that I think that so from a Te Puia perspective, say, the domestic visitation before this whole game started was at around 5 to 6% of our take. That's around 11% now, but it's still only a minute part of the business that we operate. So it is not our focus, and yet we invest a huge amount of money into this campaign because we know and we understand that through this domestic campaign, we are influencing the influencers, and they are buying the dream, and they are all over it. And so what that's doing, it's helping us punch above our weight in the international markets, in the media space, in the event space. It is giving us profile and leverage opportunities there. And those are very real for those people who aren't reliant or who are very clear that they have no domestic focus. Those things are a very powerful tool that we can now use with them.
So,
thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora koutou for your presentation, and ngā mihi kiri. I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Kent about the financials, but and it was just to clarify that it was based on the timing and seasonality of your spending. So I'm glad that you have confidence that you'll make that budget. My other question was just to clarify, I've got two, I think, just to clarify on page 73, and it says including the implementation of new Kiwis consumer marketing activity. Just to clarify what that is, if that's okay. And then secondly, my question was based on the growth in the Rotorua visitor industry, and I've noticed we're starting to trend towards the more traditional markets of the US and Europe. And has that been an organic development or based on some investment that you have done in those markets?
So to answer the first question, the consumer campaign, it's just what I touched on before. It's basically a new Kiwis campaign focused in Auckland, focused on those Auckland migrants, and effectively looking to use the traditional migrant or the traditional, for example, Chinese media channel to actually have a conversation with those very fast-growing migrant base sitting in Auckland in particular. And so, for example, the TVCs, as I pointed out before, the TV commercials that are translated, we're doing a Chinese section of the website. We've got a partnership with the radio and the newsprint. They have their own newspaper. So the other bit is actually taking a little bit of learning from our team and from all the players in Rotorua about how to communicate our value proposition in a slightly different way. So that's what that program is, and that was a request of the industry for us to have a look at that.
Sorry, just on that one. So the other advantage of targeting a market like that, a little subsector, is that the power of VFR, so visiting friends and relatives. So we get new waves of visitors. So VFR and also into places like Australia. So then the next opportunity is to do a very similar thing within the Australian market. We put a bit of focus there out of Te Puia. We spend some time in Sydney influencing the people, the inbounders from Korea and Japan, etc. Huge numbers of people living in that community, and usually using similar mechanisms. So it just creates a broader market.
Yeah, I think there's about just over 250,000 sort of in the Auckland market in respect of just of new Chinese residents to New Zealand in recent times. I think, well, we did when we done the research. I think there's between 2 and 3 million in Sydney. You know, it's a huge part, a part of what makes up their community. In respect to the traditional markets, really that's partnering with. It's a little bit about the global economic situations. So as you see, global economics shifting in respect of the US is starting to lift and starting to come back, and that then in turn is driving the likes of Air New Zealand and other airlines to consider targeting that market, and Tourism New Zealand looking to target that type of market. The same argument will be in place for the likes of South America as an emerging market, and starting to, it's more driven by the underlying economics, which from our perspective we then work with Tourism New Zealand, with Auckland International Airport, with Air New Zealand, because none of those visitors are sitting there thinking they're going to come to Rotorua. They're looking for a New Zealand experience or a New Zealand Australian experience actually to start with, and then we're looking to translate that. So it's a mix of market activity alongside the big players, really.
And with that one again, it's another one around this. Not everything goes back to this domestic campaign, but it is. I can't overstate how helpful it is in terms of influencing influencers. So our trade has greater confidence in Rotorua, in selling Rotorua. They know that there is investment happening here. They know that there is development, and that they know that we know who we are and what we're about. So that's given them confidence to book us and to take new leaps of faith with us.
Okay. Now, councillors, I know we've all been looking to a report from Destination Rotorua. There's 2 other councillors that want to ask a question. I'll let them ask that, and then we'll close after that, because I'm very much aware Grow Rotorua has been waiting for a little while. As I said, there's always much enthusiasm. They've been waiting for your report, Mark. So we'll now go to Councillor Kent and then Gould, and we'll close questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to have a comment from you, Mark, with respect to some figures that Oscar put out with the famously Rotorua distribution, which caused me to sort of take a closer look at them. The figures here relate to electronic card purchase values being up 51.1% from international, which is excellent. But that is, when you look at it closely, it's very primarily driven by a massive increase in the Chinese market, which is up 213%. My question is, if we've got international electronic card purchase values up by 51%, and our accommodation commercial visitor nights are only up from international 16%, and our attractions and activity visits from international are only up 13%. Is there any way we can actually get to the bottom of how much of this, particularly Chinese spend that's coming into the country, is actually not reaching our local economy because it's being actually skimmed off by the captured market operators who are busing people into Rotorua, taking them to very specific places, obviously clocking up large credit card purchases and disappearing again.
So what I would say is that electronic card spend is actually electronic card spend in Rotorua. So it is flowing through to our community. I understand where you're coming from your question in respect of, the China market has changed dramatically in the last 2 years, and I actually see that as a really good story about the fact of the value growth of the Chinese market, and it's not all volume growth, which is where we used to be, very much. So we're getting a far greater level of value per visitor from that market, which is, is a really positive lens. I think you might be commenting on some monthly figures there as well, instead of actually looking at it on an annual basis, because one of the other things in the monthly bit is just really conscious of the seasonality component, and one of the things that I'm sure Kerry could comment, but we have seen a shift in respect of, while the Chinese market in particular likes to travel in that high Chinese New Year season, it's very much longer these days, and you would have noticed a lot more down Fenton Street, for example, a lot more tour buses around pretty much from sort of September onwards, which traditionally was actually something that was compressed really into that January, February, March, April type period. So yeah, we are very conscious of the market mix. It's both an opportunity and a risk to be managed, but I think the key point being that we would like to try and ensure we can change the conversation a little bit from, and hopefully the presentation gives you a bit of a feel that the market is shifting and the market is changing and it's not what it used to be, and it is actually flowing through to a pretty serious level of contribution to our economy. So I'm just conscious of that.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mark, for your report. Page 77, it says that the eyesight is up 60k, which is $60,000. Does that take into account the eyesight closing of the City Focus last Friday?
These figures don't know, but so these figures don't because it wasn't closed at that point in time. In respect of the year, the City Focus was pretty much cost neutral to us, give or take. Depends on how the seasonalisation and timing of that. It'll probably assist us to perform a little bit better financially, actually. So not a major impact. The biggest impact for us will actually be enabling us to get on with the seismic upgrade of the eyesight. As you would have noted in the presentation, it's quite crowded. Now we're not even at the high season yet, and it's starting. We've got 96% customer satisfaction, but it's starting to have a bit of an impact on our visitor experience, and actually for the poor staff. I mean, we're up in numbers through the door, but she's very warm experience, to be fair to say. At the moment, we don't have any way to solve that. So we are planning to have a seismic upgrade plan back in front of you in the next 2 months, and to try and do it over the winter period, because it is the single biggest risk to our financial performance in respect of what that may do to impact our customers. So, yeah.
Thank you very much to Mark, Kitty, Graham, Oscar, and was it Billy who ran the... Yeah. Thank you for coming along. Been very interesting. Right, now it's my pleasure to welcome from Grow Rotorua, John and Francis. I'm sorry you've had to wait so long, but we need to put you last in case anything has to be asked in confidential. So we look forward to hearing from your update. We have read your report, and so if you just want to highlight a few things, I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Worship, the Mayor, Councillors and Management. What do I need to say after listening to the last presentation? I mean, when we came into Grow Rotorua, it was pretty quiet and not a lot happening, and it's very exciting. The energy's there, the confidence looks there. So I think it would be just the best way to do is Francis is going to give a bit of a speech on just what's happening. We will be mindful of the confidence issues, so that we'll flag that if we have to, and then we'll take questions. Is that how you like to do it? And I hope everybody did read the 30 June report. Yep. Yes. So I'll pass over to Francis.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come and present. I thought it was a 4-monthly update, and everyone else is sort of doing Q1, so we're about 33% ahead of everyone else, so here you go. Look, John mentioned the annual report. That's been 100% Rotorua production, even the printing, once we negotiated with them to better the Tauranga price. And that's gone out to over 600 people, including the Prime Minister, who enjoyed reading it, or so he told me. So it's been very much positioned as, there's a lot of opportunity, investment opportunity in there, and that's been the key part of it, and that's why we've positioned it as that. And I know a few of you sort of come and get more copies off me, so that's all starting to work. This was a slide that Jeff put together, which is fantastic, sort of described the journey that we're going on and where we're at into that sort of year 3 we started 3 years ago now into that delivery phase. So in the financials, I don't want to look like we're a sort of a revenue type of business. We're not. You know, we get funding, we get as much funding as we possibly can, and the goal is to spend that as wisely and effectively as we can. But at the end of October, running a surplus there against the funding and net assets, really, that's about another 3 months burn rate in there. So the challenge is to make sure that we operate within the funding that we can gain in. And against the statement of intent, a little bit of different shape to that this year. The focus is on obviously getting capital investment and job creation going. And on your report there, I've listed, or hopefully I have, 5 projects which are advancing reasonably well. We could probably add to that list as of the last couple of weeks. So those are the highlights, or some of them so far. The Kuirau Thermal Water Park, we've got the investment memorandum completed for that, and once we've had the conversations with Dave and the executive team and Pukiroa, we'll be taking that out to investors who we know there's 3 parties already who are quite interested in it, but we just have to hold them back. And the key one there is how it connects them with the aquatic centre and the steam kitchen as well, so that we get quite a magnet. Some of you may know John Wells, who owned the Titoki estate up opposite Tikateri. That property is now sold, and the new owners have some pretty exciting plans. At one end, they want to create a high-end resort. We've put them in touch with quite a number of local people and in the golfing industry and helicopter jet hire industry. And they want to use the income from that to create like an outward bound for disadvantaged young people. So it's quite an exciting plan that they've got. Across all the projects, I think I counted up this morning, 6 of them involve local Te Arawa investment, which is exciting, and those groups are starting to get themselves quite well organised, teaming up together so that they can leverage the investment capability that they've got. And a group will be travelling over to Austria in February to have a look at the engineered timber, so that one's advancing quite well. And another group are quite keen on connecting their dairy farms into a bottling plant and then creating consumer products. So it's quite exciting that they've got this focus across the value chain. We've got a company from Auckland. They're already in business working with a local supplier, but they want to relocate their plant to Rotorua, which would be great, and that's very, very high-end product. Anything that comes out of a sawmill usually sells around anywhere from $250 to $500 a cubic metre. Their product is from $1,200 to $2,500 a cubic metre, and going into high-end applications in Germany and the Middle East and China, so it's a very exciting product. In the wood first, some of you have been through the ACC, but we're working hard with Wairiki with their new building and putting a lot of resource into them to try and show them the advantages of constructing that in wood first. And fortunately, we've got some reports now that are done in Australia, scientifically peer-reviewed, that show a 7-storey building works out about 14% cheaper if done in engineered timber, whereas everyone was saying, oh, it's more expensive, I'm going to discount it. And they looked at, I think, a retirement village, a huge big storage shed, and an office complex, and every one of them came out a lot cheaper. And, well, to me, that's significant. You know, anywhere from 3 to 14% for a wood first. So we're building that information, and that's really placing us well to have those conversations. So in the tourism sector, I've touched on the Kuirau Park there. I can go into some more detail about those later. The golf course, working with Golf Tourism New Zealand to create an economic case around that type of business, which is the same as the mountain biking. Most of the money's generated off course, and again, they are some pretty high value visitors. Our focus in the tourism sector, I mean, that's a hard act to follow, and I wish I had those guys on my marketing team, is around the product development and, working with partners and leveraging what we can do to get the sort of product that's needed that's going to help drive towards that $1 billion goal. So here is what we do fits in with that. Good example is the multi-day trail and the team from South Waikato. So they're well into a study there to create a 240 kilometre big multi-day ride that would connect Rotorua through into the South Waikato trails, back over the Mamakus and here again. So as they say, it would make sense of Te Arahi and some other, Waikiki Valley and Mamaku and those sorts of things if we can connect it up. The Rotorua Trails Trust, they're up and running really well under Greg Brown's chairmanship now, and picking up some funding as well. The destination development and management, these guys that were on before us, fabulous job in the marketing, but the other part of that, we're teamed up with the council and DRM, is how do you actually develop and manage, or let me reverse the question, what is current best practice that we can learn from some great destinations around the world, similar profile to Rotorua in terms of developing and managing it, so we want to get on the front foot, and that's Terry Stevens, and he'll be coming out here hopefully early next year is where we're looking. In Air New Zealand, Christopher Luxon, Kiri said before, the key thing is that the trade need to know who you are, that you know who you are, where you're going. He completely got that and has backed us to bring this guy out, at their expense, which is fantastic. So in the wood processing, Tim, sector, I mentioned about the group going over to Austria in February, which is great, and we've put together a high-level sort of investment plan for those people so they understand it's a $30 million build. It would employ about 40 to 50 people. It could use local interest forests and potentially a sawmill if they create one, but it doesn't need one. And then at the tail end of it, the marketing and distribution offshore. The global research project is great. This one kicked off before the regional growth study action plan, but MB have got them behind that with $65,000 to help us undertake that, which is awesome. And they've asked Grow Rotorua to be the lead on that research project with the providers in the States. So Wood First, what we're working on here is with Andrew, Andrew's up there, is a go-to guide, which sort of hopefully convinces people why they should build in timber. We're planning a conference in May next year. That's making some good progress with John Stoolan from Innovatech, and as I mentioned before, the new build. So that's what we're doing in that space. Agribusiness sector, we're all aware of the wider environment around the nitrogen rules, but our focus has been on what's alternative land uses for those farmers, or better still, what are ways in which they can make more money. So we've sent out the information memorandum on a bottling plant, which is a key catalyst to attract farms. The group that are looking at have access to about 40 dairy farms, none of them in the caldera, but that doesn't matter because those people will come into it. Don't worry about that. And then on the Manukau plantations, the honey and the oils. And the good news there is Te Awa River Iwi Trust, they got some afforestation grant funding, which is great to put in Manukau, but are setting up a nursery with Scion and their kids to develop the high UMF seedlings, and beekeeping course at the other end of it. So this was part of what we were required to do. It's about creating jobs, but it's about creating those new skills in new areas. So that's starting to shape up nicely. And it's great to have someone, a group like Tarrant, that has that vision and drive and is driven by other values, and the good things come out of it. Nicole mentioned the flight training before, so myself and Nicole are working together on this, which is a great team thing. So the Boeing market forecast, which I've managed to get a hold of, predicting requirement of what they call single-aisle jets, so that's the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 737s. Over the next 10 to 15 years, there'll be 20,000 new aircraft required. Each aircraft requires 10 crew, plus replacements as the pilots get a bit older. So the training need is for 250,000 new pilots, bulk of which will be in what they call Southeast Asia, South Asia, and China. So New Zealand is extremely well positioned. We speak good English. We have very, very good flight training, ability and long history. So there's an ability to leverage the airport around that. The only thing is there was one from CTC as I was washing my car doing touch and goes, and I'm going to see if we can get a bit of a silencer on these things and quieten them down a bit, because they if you move. And the international education, that group's running well. They've produced this booklet. Actually, it's translated into 14 different languages, and their website's just about to go live. And like Oscar and his team, they've been doing a few trade fairs in Japan and Brazil. We leverage the, just to show you how it can work, Renee went over with Tapuia on the Brazil trip, South America, and while there she was attending some education fairs, pushing that side of it, so we can actually leverage up what other people are doing. And Kitty mentioned it before about Tapuia, is that a lot of those iconic facilities, we can build into what the wider Rotorua investment proposition looks like, even though we're not looking for investment in Tapuia. People can see that, see the quality, know that it's absolutely world class, and that builds on the proposition for Rotorua. So if there's any deeper questions that you have, I'm quite happy to dive into one of those. I didn't mention the helium balloon, but happy to chat about that.
Very much for that update. That's a lot of exciting opportunities there. So are there any questions at this point? Councillor McVicker.
Yeah. You indicated here, and thank you for your report. Good update. Engineered wood plant investor interest $30 million. How realistic is that?
The potential. All these things have a percentage weighting. The company that we're working with in Austria, KLH, rated #1 in the world. They're a 250-year-old family-owned business, very much driven by family values, by sustainability, by doing things right, by being patient about return on investment. So from that perspective, their values line up perfectly with the Te Aroha investment group. The group from Te Aroha have access to about 60 million realisable assets, so we can't count land and trees, but in terms of cash investments and shares and those sorts of things. So capital-wise, it'll depend on what the final deal looks like, but if we're looking for, say, something like 15, 20 million from local investors, it should be doable. The key to it will be the market potential side of it, so that's why we're undertaking that other work with FEA from the States, and the strategy around how the market is actually built, because the key demand is up in Japan and Korea, Southeast Asia, India, so it'll be about how that actually builds out. But we know we're in Australia a week and a half ago. Lend-Lease are going to build 1,600 apartments in cross-laminated timber, and also there's another 4 high-rise buildings that they've got planned, so there's 100 million of business in the pipeline in Australia already. So that'll be the key to it. I'll give you an example. A building in New Zealand, the cross-laminated timber supplied for that was $260,000. we costed the same product out of Austria would be 160 plus shipping, which was about 20,000. So the key is whatever we build here has to be world-class competitive, because the other three major suppliers will be competing against it. So that's the key to it. Exactly like Red Stag have done with a world-class mill, this plant has to be world-class efficient. And Scion will come in behind it to see how the different grades of Pinus radiata can be optimised to get the best performance at the lowest price.
Just mindful, I did note after we'd asked that it has got confidential on there. Do you need to go into confidential at all to answer any questions here? Are you sure?
You are live streaming.
We are live streaming. Yes. All right. So, Councillor, yes, Councillor Kent, was yours a question on some of these items? It was something in the public? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've reported here for the 4 months ending 31st October, total income of 401,000, giving you a net surplus of 109. Can you refresh my memory how much of that is actually cost to council and how much is actually income, please?
I'm working off memory. I think we've got the variation around about 40,000 of other income in the first. So there would be 350. Our total funding for the year is 700 from council. So we will have got half of that in. It's a cash flow because it's paid 3 months in advance. No, it's paid in advance for the next 3 months. Yeah.
Your Worship.
I just want to thank you for your work in the regional growth study, and now that it's becoming an action plan, are we still active participants?
Oh, better than that. We've got a hand up to drive, I think, well, particularly in the agribusiness sector and the timber processing sector. So we were clever enough to get several of our projects in there and MBM behind it. The new money that's come in is gratefully accepted, but I think what it does do is it cracks open the door. Our experience and others in Taupo and Aporiki and places like that is that the access into central government is a lot better and easier and faster than it has been, so that's got to bode well. And just it means also, say for instance on the cross-laminated timber plant, NZT have come in behind that and said when it requires a full feasibility study, we're good for 250,000 to come in behind that. So on the flight training, Todd's got in behind, Todd McClay, as Minister of Export Trade. He's got in behind that and helping us with Education New Zealand, NZTE and Civil Aviation Authority to develop that business.
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Is your financial end of year going to be about cross neutral at the present time? Because it's, some of the figures for 4 months are quite high compared to.
Yes. Well, as I said at the beginning, what we try and do is match our expenditure to the income that we can get, or in other words, do as much as we possibly can with whatever income is there. So our target is a small surplus, I think, of about $8,000. We have a 20,000 contingency in there. But like the DM team, it's all about phasing expenditure. So basically we go as hard and fast as we can within the money that's available. But we'll, I take it personally to make sure that we finish within the funding that we've got.
I just have one question. Through some of my focus groups we've been having with my portfolio, a question was raised yesterday that there is a perception among potential Chinese investors about the quality of our schools. So they'd like to come here, but they all think that their children are better off being educated in Auckland. And while we know that's not true, we know that we've got really good quality schools. Have we thought about that, or are we doing things to address that? I kind of know it's a bit of a crossover into Destination Rotorua, potentially, but I didn't realise it was such a perception amongst that area, that particular culture. So I just wondered if you have thought about it at all.
Mark and Andrew might be able to help me here, because I know Mark did some perception study work probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and the quality of the education was an issue back then. Certainly wasn't focused on the Chinese market at all. And Andrew, through Delve, has just done some perception work of people who are looking to move here. But I think, you know, my response would be it's a similar task to what the boys have done with famous Rotorua. We've got to change the perception, and that's a mission, you know, and the work that Leith is doing, and because there's some great results there, the international education people, you know, we've in all these things we've got to play to our strengths, you know, and if there's a perception that Auckland's has better schools, that could be true, I don't know, but we have to promote what we're better at here and stick to it. Nobody can beat us on that.
I agree with you. I just wondered where that was fitting within the current work program, but Mark's still here, so he's heard that, and I'm sure. But I know that originally with Famously Rotorua, it's more about our image and safety, and so I guess that could be grown and to encompass other good things in the future, to change perceptions. So I think we'll close it there. So thank you very much. Did you want to have a final comment, John?
Madam Chair, I guess we're at a bit of a crossroads at the moment. So our understanding with Jeff is that at the moment we're down 3 directors. So Hemi, Gina and Warren Parker are no longer directors. So we're down to 4. There's nothing wrong with that. Because we've got the projects, as you can see, and we've got the management focused on them, and so we've got good oversight with 4 directors, but there needs to be a discussion in here. I mean, I'm sensing a hell of a lot of confidence coming through. There's a lot of activity going on out there, and there's a lot of people wanting to come to Rotorua, and there will be investment of many shapes and forms. So we're in good space, but there are areas of economic development which we're not touching at all at the moment. For example, business attraction. Now, priority 1 down at Tauranga, they spend half their time, $1 million a year on business attraction, and they have brought in a lot of businesses down there. We are not in that space. So again, we could resource up, or the council could encourage the chamber to resource up. We need to have that debate. That's all I'm saying. There are areas of economic development that I think we are not duplicating, which is good. So we work in well with Destination Rotorua. We work well with the airport. We meet regularly to make sure that we do not duplicate our activities. But there are areas where Destination Rotorua is marketing products that exist today, but they're not marketing products that exist tomorrow, because you can't under-deliver. So it's our job to actually identify what those products are going to be and bring those to the fore. We're also seeing a lot of, as Mark mentioned in his presentation, we're seeing a lot of new events coming in, and I think that's going to dynamically change Rotorua quite dramatically, that we are going to be seen as not only a destination for Maori and geothermal, but destination for a whole lot of really good activities. I was very pleased to hear from Ngāi Tahu the other day that they did not do their investment well with Rainbow Springs, just aspects of Rainbow Springs, and that they are going to revisit that investment, and they're going to change it. So again, they are recognising that they underdelivered, and that has not helped us, and therefore they're going to change their approach. So we are lifting the game, and we're changing attitudes, and you heard that from previous speakers. So I think this whole perception of Rotorua is going to be dramatically changed over the next year or 2, and I think that's obviously going to be hugely beneficial for the region and the district. So that's my comments.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presentation and information today. Thank you. All right. So now we will move on to, just give a couple of moments. We will go into confidential now. So we'll just wait a few minutes. I don't think we'll have a 5-minute break. We'll just wait. Thank you. So would someone like to move that we go into confidence, please? Councillor Gould, Councillor Bentley, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. While we're waiting, we'll go to page 79 for our previous minutes. Yeah, 79. Okay. All right. So could someone please move that the confidential minutes? Yeah, we won't. Oh, is our live streaming off? It will be. Yes. Oh, you're checking. Okay. Oh. We'll just wait to ensure that our live stream is turned off, because you can't tell from that blue button if it seems to always be blue whether it's off or on. See that unobtrusive little camera? Unobtrusive is the right one.